Hello, YouTubers. Joe of Joe and Paul here on Monday, February 11th, 2013. It's been a very full day on the internet for me, although in a very limited sense. It started off with watching the launch of this Russian supply ship from the Baikonur Cosmodrome in Kazakhstan, where they're going to take 6,000 pounds plus of supplies up to the International Space Station. And that was fine. That took a while, and of course it's great because the Russians use kerosene and liquid oxygen. None of this liquid hydrogen nonsense and liquid oxygen for them. So they're very reliable. And so up it went. And then off to the British Parliament to listen to David Cameron talk about how he stuck it to the European Union guys about their attempt to extract money and extort money from the British people for all of the all right, David, for all of these nonsensical European Union projects. And then I listened to some of the subsequent debate, back and forth, which is always interesting. And then it's time to go watch the launch of the Landsat satellite from Vandenberg Air Force Base. And more to the point, it's very interesting to see how they were fueling this thing. I didn't realize they waited till the last 2 hours to fuel up these rockets. So they had the Atlas V, which was the kerosene and liquid oxygen. They had the Centaur thing on top of the Atlas V first stage. That actually was liquid hydrogen and liquid oxygen, and then you had the little capsule with the satellite, they had incredible shots of this when it finally did launch, and then after it had gone around, once, then they did the second firing of the second stage. And they did the separation of the satellite. There was a camera on the top or the front end of the second stage. You could see the satellite being ejected off of the second stage. I mean, this is very compelling internet television. I'm going to tell you that right now. And the great thing about it was all when the light was perfect. When the satellite was ejected, it was just going into what would amount to a sunrise, even though in a way, when you think about it, since they're moving west, it's into a sunset, but it's a sunrise. And so then the next thing was we have to watch the Progress 50 vehicle dock at the space station. And I clicked over just in time to see this thing sort of, coming up slightly below, because if it's below, it's a little faster, so that way it can sort of, get even with the space station finally. And then it orients itself up, and then it goes into the little magic hole there they've got for it. And it was all in, total daylight. Sometimes this happens on the dark side of the earth, and you don't see it. But this was just magical to watch, and I urge people to look on some of this space station stuff as much as they can, because a lot of it's a bit repetitive, but it's worth looking at. In any case, here's Paul. Now here's Paul. Paul's home with us.
You do know that the space station stops when they're doing a locking system. They do not continually keep moving. they stop so that the moving object can come up and lock into them.
I think Paul is basically saying that they don't continually adjust their attitude. Obviously, if they stop, they would drop like a really massive stone.
There's some way that they stop and hold still as they're locking together, so they can get everything to connect.
Well, that raises a very interesting point. Now, obviously, they don't stop moving, but they stop changing their attitude. But this does raise the point about how, you know, some of the scriptural naysayers who, you know, like to, you know, poo-poo Joshua in about the sun standing still. What nonsense is that, Paul?
4349.
Well, what's it say on the thing? What's it say?
Liberty Online.
Oh, no, that's okay. That's
shit.
Well, it's just a nonsense phone call. So anyway,
Okay.
So to get into the space station standing still, that's reminiscent of the people.
Hey, this is Steve Peterson from Liberty University Online.
Yes, thank you, Paul. To digress very briefly, I mistakenly was being very depressed about the various what passes for theological truths in the U.S. Episcopal Church today. And I was thinking, well, you know, maybe I can get a master's degree in theology, you know, from a more evangelical background and so on. So I thought, well, I can do it online, and I looked around at some of this, but this one place has been very persistent in contacting me, even though I contacted them back and explained that, you know,
Thanks.
I'd had a sort of a theological bit of angst, and but thank you for contacting me back, but that's it. I'm sorry I bothered you. And so, but these folks won't stop. All right. Well, that's the phone call digression. Now, we were, I think, talking about
The launches.
Yes.
And docking.
Oh, well, I was going. Well, no, it was a point of departure for the idea that you know, do you believe that the sun stood still in the account of Joshua? Well, yes, I do. I have no problem with that. I have absolutely no problem with that. It's a miracle. I have no problem with miracles. So for all of these folks up there who are professional atheists and professional naysayers and who like to, you know, present themselves as a defender of the rational and the 18th century worldview taken to the extreme, I have no problem with that. All right. So, so that pretty much accounts for the online activities today. I cooked a cup of rice again, which I haven't, you know, brown rice, which I haven't cooked rice for a while. But I always keep forgetting how much it expands. You know, this stuff almost went over the top of the pot. I'm going to have to write that down somewhere on the cupboard or something to remind me, because I keep forgetting how much this stuff expands.
Brown rice?
Well, any rice for that matter, but
Yeah.
It's brown rice because, you know, we're supposed to be healthy.
Right.
And all that stuff. You know, mix and match. So we got, you know, we have rice, bacon, sausage, beans, lentils. We'll probably have tomatoes and olives, you know, by the time all's said and done. So take that, health nuts, and we'll see.
Or maybe tomatoes, as some people say.
Well, tomatoes. They're called tomatoes. You know, that's what they're called. Um, Pope Benedict is going to hit, pull the ripcord and hit the silk here on his mission or calling or whatever these guys call it. I have a great deal of time for this man. I really do. And I had a great deal of time for his predecessor, John Paul II. As you may know, I'm not necessarily a fan of the Roman Catholic Church, qua church, small c church. I have a great deal of time for very faithful, intelligent, committed individuals, such as John Paul II and Benedict XVI. It was very clear watching Benedict during the Christmas service. After I got home from Christmas Eve service, I turned on the TV and, watched him. I wasn't live; it was a tape delay at that point. But excuse me again. This man was clearly failing. And I was thinking at the time, gosh, of course, John Paul II, particularly during that last week there before he died there on Good Friday, I think it was 2005 he died. This was a guy that had gone more than the extra mile or even the extra 2 miles. And what an inspiration. Now, clearly Benedict feels that watching his mortal body be pounded on the altar of, on the altar of service, I guess, would not promote the service to which he's been promoted, called. I don't like the word called, but we'll say called. In any case, this will allow a very reasonable transition in this RC outfit. Except for the 3 or 4 oddball tenets of the Roman Catholic Church, small c church, I have no real problem with them. That and the Mary stuff. And I've come to understand a lot more of that Mary stuff here lately. Hope it goes well for him, and of course, for that matter, the RC Church. My son, teaches in their school system, so obviously I wish them well and him well in that endeavor. I haven't heard how his confirmation group went this last Sunday, but perhaps I'm sure I'll hear at some point. I'm sure it went fine. He taught them, so I'm sure it went fine. Unless, some spiritual adversary intervened on one of the kids and they decided to pull a stunt. I suppose the bishop could have taken off his wooden leg and hit him with them, to settle him down. That's a really bad joke, but nonetheless, I had to say it because it sprang into my head, so I had to say it. Yes, I had to say it. So, I think that unless Paul's got something to come over and say, he can make his own video. I could appear in his video. Do you have anything to add, Paul? Paul just came in from a smoke.
No, because I don't know what you were talking about this last night.
Paul is taking a very neat and careful, affiant saith not stance. Very excellent. Alrighty now.
I will be silent at the moment.
Bye-bye.